Welcome to the Candela effect. In this first episode, we'll discuss the Ennis-Brown house, designed by famed architect Frank Lloyd Wright. Mayan Revival is a modern architectural movement that was primarily used in the 1920s and the 1930s. It draws inspiration from the architecture and iconography of Mesoamerica. The historically famous American architect Frank Lloyd Wright designed 4 textile block residences in Los Angeles: the Millard House, also known as La Miniatura, the Samuel Freeman House, the Storer House, and the Ennis House, which was the largest and most ambitious of the 4. His son Lloyd Wright designed the lesser-known but culturally important John Shoden House.
Yo, hell no. Look, you know this place is haunted, right? Like, for real, haunted. I dare you to go inside of it.
The house has an interesting story that may be worth its own episode in the future, but today, it's all about the Ennis-Brown house. Built in 1924, the Ennis-Brown house is arguably the best example of Mayan architecture in the United States. Charles Ennis and his wife Mabel, owners of a prominent downtown Los Angeles clothing store, commissioned the residence. Like many of Frank Lloyd Wright's designs, the building's entrance is obscured. This actually forces guests to interact with the building as they explore the exterior in search of the entryway. Once you actually find the entryway, it's dark and uninviting. This tension gives one a sense of claustrophobia, allowing for a dramatic entrance into the grand space once inside. That, by the way, it's trademark Wright. You're greeted to a large living room with grand wood beams and an impressive view of Los Angeles. At 62,000 square feet, the house consists of 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, an elevated dining room and kitchen with Wright's signature mitered windows on display. A chauffeur's quarters, conveniently located above the 4-car garage, has its own bedroom, bath, kitchenette, and living room. The guest suite and bedrooms are arranged around a glass-lined loggia, separating the public spaces from the private. The loggia opens out to 2 large terraces. The largest of the 2 has a pool that was installed after construction due to Wright's objections to the idea brought up by the Ennis family. In 2008, the Ennis House was listed as one of the top 10 houses of all time in Southern California, according to the Los Angeles Times, and it is on the U.S. National Register for Historic Places. In addition, it is considered a California Historic Monument and a Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument. The house was built out of 27,000 textile blocks. Each block was cast by hand, made of gravel, granite, and sand found on the site. Wright used this textile block as a way to challenge himself, stating in his autobiography, "It was the cheapest and ugliest thing in the building world. It lived mostly in the architectural gutters as an imitation of rock-faced stone. Why not see what could be done with this gutter rat?" Steel rods cast inside the joints of the blocks themselves, and the hole brought into some board. Why would it not be fit for a new phase of modern architecture? It might be permanent, noble, beautiful. It would be cheap.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It's
Gets
gross.
the people going.
Wright used the Greek key, sometimes referred to as a meander motif, as inspiration for the 24 distinct textile blocks on both the exterior and the interior. Within the most prominent block pattern seen throughout the residence, it's possible to interpret a G. This may allude to the Masonic order in which Charles Ennis was a member. The letter G stands for God and reminds Masons that God is at the center of Freemasonry. In its context, it also stands for Great Architect of the Universe. Wright took risks, and some would even argue he honored vision rather than physics. This is something that can be seen in his most famous work, Falling Waters. Like many of his iconic buildings, the choice of material requires a significant amount of maintenance and upkeep to maintain their appearance. Over time, the textile block cladding the facade cracked, and lower sections of the wall buckled under tensile stress. The use of decomposed granite from the site to color textile blocks introduced natural impurities to the concrete mix, and combined with air pollution, caused premature decay. Unfortunately, this was not the only structural problems to befall the Ennis house. In 1994, a 6.7 magnitude earthquake rocked the greater Los Angeles area, injured 87,000 and caused $20 billion in damage, making it one of the costliest natural disasters in U.S. history. This led to massive legislative and California building code changes. The quake damage to the house was significant. Large portions of the multi-level terrace retaining wall had collapsed, and the foundation was damaged. The Ennis House Foundation estimated it to cost $5 million for stabilization and $15 million for a full restoration.
I gotta do it, man.
Dude. What are you doing? Huel. Hey, quit screwing around. We are here to do a job.
Actress Diane Keaton, a preservation enthusiast who would later join the Ennis House Foundation board, presented an impassionate presentation, calling on the Hollywood community, who had gained so much from the use of the house in films, to save it in this time of need. This led the Los Angeles Conservancy president Tom Schmidt to meet with Hollywood movie producer Joe Silver. As a former owner of the Storehouse and current owner of All Brass Plantation, he is considered a Frank Lloyd Wright enthusiast.
He used a lot. I mean, he would build the property to fit the site. And he never built in a place like this before. He never created anything in this area, so nothing else he ever did looks like this.
Joel promised a guaranteed $4.5 million line of credit. This in turn helped the release of a matching FEMA grant. Now, I don't want to bore you with all the details, but this septillionaire guy helped come up with the rest of the money to fully restore the house, and so yeah, Eric Lloyd Wright, grandson of FLW, who by the way was responsible for a number of restoration projects of his grandfather's buildings, was positioned as head architect of the restoration. Needless to say, the Ennis house was in good hands. Now, when Diane Keaton stated that the Ennis house made an impression on the Hollywood community, she wasn't exaggerating. The house has been featured in numerous movies, TV shows, fashion shoots, and various private events for the Hollywood elite. You can see the house highlighted in House on Haunted Hill.
I guess all Melissa found what she was looking for.
Not that House on Haunted Hill. The 1959 Vincent Price House on Haunted Hill. Same premise, but just better in every way. You can also see it in Blade Runner, The Day of the Locust, Rush Hour, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, T3's music video Y featuring Michael Jackson, Twin Peaks, and even a cartoonist version pops up in South Park. Also, if you look closely, you can see the influence of this iconic house and architectural style in the popular HBO show, Game of Thrones. In closing, I will end with a line from a 1924 letter Wright wrote to Mr. and Mrs. Ennis. You see, the end result is going to stand on that hill 100 years or more. Long after we are gone, it will be pointed out as the Ennis house, and pilgrimages will be made out to it by lovers of the beauty from everywhere. This has been the introductory episode to the Candela effect. I hope you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have enjoyed researching the Ennis house. It is a personal favorite of mine. It was great inspiration for me when I was in design studio. I remember having it as my Mac wallpaper while studying architecture at Florida A&M University. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Tell me what you thought of the video, and give me suggestions on how I can improve future episodes in the comments below. What building, style of architecture, era, or just general architectural topics should I discuss next? As always, you'll find a bibliography in the description box below, in case you want to do some reading and research on the topic. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so you're always updated when new videos drop. And most importantly, never stop learning.